Cheers and welcome to S.O.V and Beers. I'm your host, Tony from SOVhorror.com. And I got some comments on a couple of my last videos. People were asking, Tony, what are you drinking? The show's called S.O.V and Beers and you're not talking about the beer. So I'll take a moment to talk about today's beer, which is Bud Light. Now, normally I'm not a big fan of light beer in general, especially Bud Light, but Zombrella left these at my house the other day when we watched Black Devil Doll from Hell. So I'm working with what I got, folks. It's all that's in the fridge, and just like our S.O.V filmmakers were always praising, you work with what you got, right? So cheers to Bud Light. Anyways, so what are we talking about today? We're going to be talking about Tim Ritter's 1999 shot-on-video shockumentary, Dirty Cop No Donut, aka Lowdown Dirty Cop, starring the always great Joel D. Wynkoop. And we'll talk more about Joel later. We'll get into the film a little more, but as usual, it's time for our little brief history lesson of Tim Ritter and his films. So Tim Ritter, like a lot of our S.O.V veterans that we like to talk about, started off making Super 8 movies. Actually, the first movie I believe he was a part of was a movie that Joel D. Wynkoop actually made. Joel was actually Tim's babysitter at the time, and Joel made a Super 8 short called The Bionic Boy, which is kind of a take on the $6 Million Man, which I know is one of Tim's favorite shows. And so after that, Tim pretty much got the bug, and he decided he was going to take his parents' Super 8 camera and make his own movie. And so what we got was this movie right here, Day of the Reaper. Now this is a re-release from Sub Rosa. I wish I had an original copy. Oh goodness. The original copies, it's kind of funny, they were making these themselves. So literally they would tape the cover on with packaging tape. And what's cool about that is Tim was really one of the first filmmakers, especially he was a teenager at the time. I think he was only about 15, 16 years old when he made Day of the Reaper. And he would go to video stores and try to sell them this movie. And he was actually relatively successful. And the funny story of it all is at one point, someone mentions this movie to Joel D. Wynkoop. And the name Tim Ritter comes up. And Joel goes, I know Tim. And so Tim and Joel actually reconnected after that. And they got together with another friend of theirs named Al Nicolosi, and made actually what is Tim's first shot-on-video movie, co-directed by Joel and Al. And this one's called Twisted Illusions. Once again, this is not an original tape. It's a re-release that was put out by Sub Rosa. And this is actually the Ultimate Edition, so it actually includes, part 2 is kind of edited together with this version. And so they made Twisted Illusions. And the notable thing about Twisted Illusions is there's a short in there directed by Tim, starring Joel, called Truth or Dare. And I know you guys are probably getting where we're going with this. Yes, Truth or Dare, Critical Madness. So after the success of Twisted Illusions, which is pretty cool too, they were selling these to video stores. Tim and Joel would go to video stores, they'd sell them to video stores, and they hooked up with these guys they called the van guys. And these guys were distributors who would pretty much buy up tapes, drive to video stores in these vans, and sell videos to stores. And so they were getting Day of the Reaper and Twisted Illusions in these stores. And they started to get noticed. Tim's work started to get noticed. And he hooked up with Peerless Entertainment, who produced Truth or Dare Critical Madness. And I mean, look at this cover. I've always loved this cover. It's a nice foil-wrapped cover. I mean, this was a staple in just about every video store when I was a kid. You couldn't go anywhere without seeing Truth or Dare. And it was my first exposure to Tim, and I'm sure a lot of other people's as well. And a few other interesting facts about Truth or Dare. One of the facts I love about it is there's a young version of the killer in the movie. And the young version is actually played by one of the Backstreet Boys, which is a pretty interesting one. It's either Backstreet Boys or NSYNC. I'm sorry, I'm not a boy band fan. But that's kind of a little interesting fact about Truth or Dare. Another thing is it's Elijah Wood's favorite horror movie. He says it was the first horror movie he ever rented and saw. And he's a huge fan and a big Tim fan. I I think he just started a podcast, and I heard that they had covered Truth or Dare, so I'm gonna have to check that out. But very cool to, there's a couple of celebrity connections in that, as well as the main actor, I believe, went on to be the head of SAG, so the guy who played Mike Strauber. So, all these other famous people. Let's get Tim famous, guys. Let's get Tim famous. He deserves it. He's the guy who made this. But obviously, we're not here to talk about Truth or Dare. I mean, there's 4 sequels. They're great movies. I recommend them all. I'm a huge fan. My favorite's probably the second, Wicked Games. But as I said, we are here to talk Dirty Cop No Donut. So, Dirty Cop No Donut came out in 1999. And pretty much the whole concept for Dirty Cop No Donut, and it's very genius if you ask me. It's pretty much, let's make cops, but what if the cops were bad? So Joel D. Wynkoop plays this cop, Officer Gus Kimball, or aka Officer Friendly as people like to call him. And he's pretty much this bad cop. So it's pretty much following him around. There's an unnamed cameraman who's obviously Tim, who's filming him, who he calls Film School Boy throughout the movie. And it's pretty much Officer Gus Kimball and Film School Boy, videotaping their rampage. It's an early found footage movie. Probably one of the earliest. I know Cannibal Holocaust. You don't have to email me about that, guys. But, it probably is one of the earliest examples of that. And so, Joel D. Wynkoop, as this dirty cop, he's going around, he goes to stores, he eats what he wants, doesn't pay the cashiers, he goes and parties with underage kids, he steals drugs from drug dealers and then makes them snort their own drugs and die. And he's kind of on this mission because, according to him, his father was a police officer, and so was his grandfather, but his father was killed in a domestic disturbance call. And so Joel's got some problems. He's got some daddy issues. As he says in the movie, "My daddy! You killed my daddy!" Anyways, I don't do very good impressions, sorry. But, so he just going around, he gets a drunk driver, he bashes the shit out of her car, and the drunk driver is actually played by Kathy Ritter, who's Tim Ritter's wife, and she's real fun in that role. But my favorite scene in this whole movie, and probably the most notable scene, is when Officer Kimball goes after this pedophile. So he finds this guy in the shower, and he proceeds to make the pedophile jerk off, thankfully under a towel, so we don't have to see it, guys. He's jerking off under a towel, and he makes him get hard. And then he forces the pedophile to cut off his own penis. And it's a great scene. It's disturbing. I gotta mention the pedophile's played by Bill Casanelli. I hope I said that right. Who S.O.V. fans would probably notice he's acted in a bunch of other S.O.V. movies, as well as wrote the S.O.V. film Scary Tales, if you know that one. So, and Bill does a really good job in this role as well. But the topper of it is all, so after he makes this guy cut off his dick and he's laying in the shower, crying, because he can't rape young kids anymore, Officer Gus Kimball takes a piss on him. I mean, Tim Ritter is the man, great writer, and a great scene. Pretty much that's the movie, is him going around just being this bad, dirty cop. And an interesting thing about this film is kind of the distribution history of it as well. Like I said, it was made in '99, but it actually got a theatrical run in 2001. And it was actually reviewed by quite a few large publications, the New York Post, Variety, the New York Times, TV Guide. I mean, this movie got around. And I mean, you got to think about the time. I think this was post-Blair Witch Project. So, these found footage movies were probably, getting a little bit of hype, and it probably helped get that out there, is my guess. But obviously all those magazines hated it, as they do anything low-budget horror. And it's really sad because, it's a great movie. I think it's very inventive. I think it's really fun, and I think more people should see it. Now, there's been a lot of releases of Dirty Cop No Donut. This particular version right here, I believe, is the original version. And I think this is, I think it's Twisted Illusions. No, it's Salt City. So Ron Bonk's label, Salt City. And before they changed their name to Sub Rosa. So this was the first version, as far as I know. I could be wrong. And then later on, we got a DVD cut of Dirty Cop No Donut. Now, the DVD cut's actually kind of different. It actually incorporates sequel footage from the sequel. So there's actually footage from the sequel, and we'll talk about the sequel more just in a minute here. But this version runs about 20 minutes longer with that extra footage. And then we got this big old bad boy right here, Lowdown Dirty Cops Volume 1 and 2. This was a big box re-release put out by Sub Rosa in the early 2000s. They were limited to 30 copies. I got copy number 5. And what was really cool about this set and why I had to get this was they came with Legos. So SRS was putting out little Lego figures of all the Tim Ritter movies. And I, obviously, being the huge Tim Ritter fan I am, have collected all of the Legos. I think I have them all. I don't think I missed any there. And these are really cool. I'm really glad to have these in my collection. But let's go ahead and talk about the sequel a little bit, because there was a sequel made. And the sequel is, it was 2001. And what's notable about the sequel is this time we got 2 cops. So as you can see on the cover there, you may recognize S.O.V. veteran director Donald Farmer. You know, the director of Cannibal Hookers, Demon Queen, and one of my favorites, Red Lips, starring Michelle Bauer and Getty Chatham. Gosh, love those ladies. Anyway, so Dirty Cop No Donut 2 is very similar. I mean, it's pretty much, you know, a direct sequel. It's pretty much bad cops again, except this time we got 2 cops. And one of them's played by Donald Farmer, who's kidnapped the mayor's wife. And Donald is a great actor as well. And he does a great job along Joel. I mean, it's really hard. I would think it would be hard as an actor to act next to Joel D. Wynkoop, because he has so much energy. He has so much charisma. You know, he steals the scenes always. But Donald's great in this. Donald does a great job. Donald's a great actor. And if you're a fan of these movies and you're not familiar with this, I'd say, I don't know, it was like 6 or 7 years ago on Facebook, Donald and Joel both started making videos as their cop characters where they're kind of talking shit about each other. I'm sure if you go on YouTube and look up Gus Kimball or Simon Cutter, you can find those videos, and they're really fun. And Dirty Cop No Donut, it's cool. I mean, I don't like it as much as the first one, but I still think it's a fun movie. It's good. I mean, you got 2 S.O.V. legends in there. I mean, it's awesome. And yeah, that's Dirty Cop No Donut, guys. I gotta mention, you know, our movie Zombrella House of Horrors just came out, and I feel very honored. Tim Ritter actually directed one of the segments for the film, as well as some of the commercials. And you'll notice, you Dirty Cop fans, there's an ad for Holly's House of Hose. And there's a section where it says all military and police officers get a discount, and there's a shot of Donald Farmer from Dirty Cop No Donut 2 in there, as well as Joel D. Wynkoop's actually in the movie as well, and numerous scenes in our short, The Doll. You can see Wicked Games playing on the TV. The girls are watching that. And then also there's a trailer for Creep 2. So, sorry, I'm going to plug my stuff. Please go to SOVhorror.com. Pick up a copy of Zombrella's House of Horrors. Help us keep going. We got tons of more great SOV movies we're going to be putting out. And tons of more great videos, SOV minis, stuff like that. So anyways, guys, thanks for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed that little look at Dirty Cop No Donut. And I'm just going to say cheers to Tim Ritter, cheers to Donald Farmer, and cheers to one of the best actors in no-budget SOV cinemas to ever live, Joel D. Wynkoop. Thank you very much, guys. We'll see you next time. Cheers.